What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Bourbon of the Week. My name's Chris. I'm going to be your host for today, and today is Single Barrel Saturday. Now, we do single barrel reviews a little bit different than our regular Wednesday reviews because you're not always going to be able to get your hands on the same exact single barrels that I have. So this is McKenzie Single Barrel Bourbon Whiskey. This is aged 6 years. This is barrel number 2433 if you care. 108 proof. It tells us a mash bill right on here, which I love. 51% corn, 49% malted barley. Crazy mash bill if you ask me. And this was picked by Only Bourbon Fans and Sam's Whiskey Room. I haven't drank a lot of this bottle yet, so I did want to pour some up so it had some time to open up while I continue talking about this bottle. Again, this was picked by Only Bourbon Fans. I was recently on a podcast with them. Make sure you check them out on your favorite streaming platform. That being said, the bottle price on this was $55, which already intrigued me. Also, this is coming out of Finger Lakes Distillery. I was assuming that they were sourcing their whiskey. I didn't know much about them before this bottle, but they're not sourcing their whiskey. They actually have some 6-year-old whiskey in this. Again, this is 6 years distilled by Finger Lakes Distillery. We're going to talk about their timeline a little bit more as we get into this bottle, but everybody knows before we get started, time for the traditional sip. Cheers, y'all. I mean, that's pretty damn good. So I obviously got a chance to talk to the Only Bourbon Fans about this particular pick, and they told me they got 6 different samples, which is crazy. Most people send you 3, maybe 4. If you go on site, though, they usually open up to a little bit more. So 6 samples is fantastic. 3 of those samples were rye. I believe they have a bourbon whiskey, they have a bottled and bond bourbon, they have a small batch bourbon, they have a rye, they have a bottled and bond rye, and I think there's a third rye that I don't know about. They also have some American single malts, and then they get into the vodkas and gins, obviously like every other craft distillery. But this right here intrigued me for 3 different reasons. Number 1, they're distilling it themselves. I only had one drink tonight before this. They're distilling it themselves, which I absolutely love. 6 years old from a distillery that's a craft distillery is pretty fantastic. And again, 51% corn and 41% malted barley definitely caught my eye. Once I found out they had 6-year-old whiskey in this, I had to go back and I had to look them up a little bit more. They actually opened in 2007. I don't know if they started distilling in 2007, but they opened up in 2007, which means they could technically have, 17-year-old whiskey on hand. Again, I don't know that they actually started distilling in 2007. They also have 2 different stills. They have a pot still and they have a column still. I gotta say, when I first drank this, I didn't think there was any way it touched a pot still, and I feel like I have this weird thing where I can tell if it comes from a pot still, but now the second time sipping through this, it might have went through the pot still. Now, the column still didn't open until 2013, which is still 11 years, and this is only 6 years old. So I do think this came off of the column still, but Finger Lakes Distillery, if you happen to be watching this, let me know if this came off the column or the pot still, or Only Bourbon Fans, if you happen to know. I should have just asked you guys. I gotta tell you, at 108 proof, this drink's very much at its proof. I usually find these craft distilleries not doing very well when it comes to drinkability, and that proof is usually overpowering, even at 108 proof, which shouldn't be. Normally, it's a little bit higher than it should be, and this one is right at its proof. We would give it a 7.0 if we were doing a regular review. If it drank right at its proof, I'd probably go right above 7 on this. I haven't had much to drink tonight, and this doesn't give me any real big ethanol kick. Now, I gotta tell you, taste is where I'm intrigued on this one. That 49% malted barley gives me this chocolatey, peanutty flavor that, and stick with me now, reminds me of if, like, Booker's was made by a craft distillery. It's not quite as refined as Booker's is. Obviously, Jim Beam has a very, very long history in the whiskey making game, and Booker's is one of their prized possessions. But this right here, as a 6-year-old whiskey, gives me that peanutty flavor that I get from Booker's, and it reminds me of that. Again, it's not Booker's by any means, but it gives me memories of Booker's, which I can't hate from a 6-year-old whiskey coming out of Finger Lakes Distillery. Now, on the website, they do hit you with the locally grown grains, which I feel like every craft distillery does at this point. And I feel like it's probably cheaper for them to use locally grown stuff than it is to import it from somewhere else, but I digress on that. Locally grown grains doesn't bother me by any means. I don't know why I'm going off on a tangent on this. It's just something that I feel like every craft distillery does. But 51% corn coming from New York. I'm assuming it's coming from New York because maybe it's a different state that's local, I guess. But coming from New York, I know Pennsylvania is very well known for its rye. I don't know if New York is known for its malted barley or its corn, but I gotta say, whatever grains they're getting for this, it does work. And last but not least, we've got to talk about price on this. I was expecting When most people do barrel picks, you're talking, I don't know, 75, 80 bucks, especially for something that's 6 years old. Now, I don't know what these originally sell for coming from McKenzie. I didn't even look it up, or Finger Lakes Distillery, my apologies. I didn't even look up what like their regular offerings cost, but 55 bucks in this day and age when it comes to a 6-year-old bourbon, I feel like that's not a bad price at all, especially from a craft distillery. Normally, you're talking what, $10 per year, so we're talking 60 bucks. Then it's a craft distillery, it's locally grown grains, so you're talking 75. Then it's 15 bucks to ship to you. Listen, I got this to my door. Now, I don't know if Only Bourbon Fans was just hooking me up, but I got this to my door for 55 bucks. So, I got to tell you, I'll trust the Only Bourbon Fans from now on when it comes to their picks. This is a fantastic pick. At $55, I am not mad about this at all. Listen, when it comes to this influencer thing, when it comes to who you watch on YouTube or who you listen to on Spotify or Apple Music, I will say I feel like it comes down to whose palate you agree with. Maybe they like this particular bottle and you don't, so you decided not to listen to them anymore. It's all obviously relative. But for me, this particular bottle is fantastic. So when it comes to any Only Bourbon Fan picks going forward, I will make sure to follow along on that, and I hope you do as well. And make sure you check out Finger Lakes Distillery because, again, I didn't know much about this distillery before this bottle, but I will be following along after. But listen, that's where I'm going to leave you guys for today. Again, I'll put Only Bourbon Fans in my link in the description below. Make sure you check them out. Make sure you click that like and subscribe button here on YouTube. Make sure you follow me on Instagram as well, at Bourbon of the Week. Go click that follow button over there. Check us out on Patreon and Discord. Both those links in the description below. Please don't drink and drive. Always drink responsibly. Stay healthy, stay happy, and stay checking out distilleries that are distilling their own whiskey. Cheers, y'all.